hello everyone. Indian BFSI GCoEs have evolved from being global shared services centers to IT centers to technology delivery centers. Today, these GCoEs are at multiple levels of maturity with only a select few acting as true transformation hubs for their global organization. As mentioned during the opening keynote, we believe that Indian GCoEs have the talent to build 75% of all global BFSI digital products, but only 30% is being currently built from the subcontinent. Indian GCoEs undoubtedly have an opportunity to become the innovation engine for their HQ. Our Confluence theme, anti-fragile, is derived from a concept popularized by Nicholas Taleb. But what really put Taleb in the spotlight for the first time was probably his book Black Swan. It spoke about the impact of extremely rare and unpredictable outlier events. We are undoubtedly in the Black Swan event of our lifetime right now. And my first question to Srini is around this. So, Srini, as an essential services provider, the role of BFSI during the pandemic, especially in the early days, was significantly elevated as the sector became focal for disbursements or approval of funds, insurance claims, federal relief measures, etc. You had to ensure all usual systems remain operational while you build for the new use cases. Do you believe our infrastructure, talent, operating structure was ready to cope up with this demand?
Nikhil, good morning. Good morning to you all that are listening through the different channels here. It's a great question, and I hope this is probably the only Black Swan event we're going to see in our lifetime, as you said, from your mouth to God's ears. But look, Fiserv is in a very, very key sort of business where payments become important, whether you're paying for your everyday milk and bread or whether you're trying to pay for your loved one that's getting discharged from a hospital, for that matter. The extremes that I can think of, it's very critical, right? We always sort of at every stage of the payments process, there is some sort of resiliency built into it. But if you think about those of you that are listening here in India, back in 2016, demonetization happened overnight. We literally saw the digital payments sort of go 6x overnight, literally, right? So back then, we learned a bunch of things around how to make sure that systems continue to be up and running for our customers to be able to sort of pay for all of their essentials. And then almost every year in the United States, we go through what's called a Black Friday or a Cyber Monday, right? These are events that happen around November where the shopping season is at peak, right? And so is the case here in Diwali, right? Whether folks are shopping through the couple of weeks leading up to Diwali. So the point is, having the payment systems up, regardless of what time of the day it is, regardless of what day it is, right? We saw something very similar coming into the kind of COVID and lockdown situation. Folks started to buy things in bulk, right? As opposed to there was a frenzy going on with regards to people buying groceries and things like that before they could the states could go down to lockdown. So the point I'm trying to make is it's very, very essential. So we look for events that are point of time spikes, but more importantly, there's resiliency built into every single point of our payment infrastructure, both from people perspective as well as from products and payment systems perspective. So we were prepared. Maybe not just specifically for COVID, but we're generally prepared for any kind of volume spikes.
That's great. That's great to know. So there is my next question is around the usual tussle that we see in any GCoE center, right? There is always a gradual shift happening in terms of reducing the traditional IT spending to fund the digital efforts. And now it has probably been accelerated even more by the current business scenario. So according to you, how should one maintain the right balance between the run operations and the transformation operations in the BFSI context?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, right? So as we came into this event, it's as you pointed out, it's a once in a lifetime event, right? Nobody really knew how long this was going to last, what type of things are we going to see coming into this pandemic situation. But it almost immediately became very clear, as Puneet and Chakra pointed out, right? Cybersecurity became, the foremost in our minds, right? So even today, keeping the place secure is absolutely number one priority for us. So we continue to make sure that the right amount of resources are, kind of allocated towards keeping the place secure, not just from a perimeter standpoint, also from a data at rest standpoint and data transmission standpoint, right? And then you kind of go on to the next thing, which is your question, the first question, and rightfully so, you started with that, which is to keep our systems up and running, right? So again, you can't forget these two priorities because they become table stakes, even though they are something that you have to do on a day in and day out basis. In times like this, it becomes incredibly that much more important. And especially when the cyber threats continue to raise and our payment systems are that much more reliable. I mean, it has to be that much more reliable for customers to use at any point in time. Then comes the third, which is the point you were trying to make, which is all of the other things around, whether it is advancing our engineering culture or innovation. The one thing that we started to see early on, which I think, we're seeing more and more of it as we go through this and as we come out of this, is going to be the digital enablement of businesses, right? So, it almost became a survival necessity for some businesses, right? Customers are locked in, they want to have low touch options, right? They don't want to get out of where they are in a quarantine situation. Which means some businesses have no option but to have to figure out their digital strategies overnight. So we are seeing that across the board. The digital movement was there. It just has been, sort of made to go that much faster now. But what I was going to emphasize is you can't forget the fact that you got to keep your place secure and you got to make sure that your systems are up and running as you go through the transformation journey. And one of the most important transformation journeys that most people are going through now is to start to think about their digital footprint and their digital strategies. Hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely. So in just continuing with the same vein, so we heard the previous panel also talk about some of the new technology initiatives and AI, ML, blockchain, cloud, RPA, data analytics are some of the words we have been hearing in the BFSI context for quite some time now, right? So according to you, which of these technologies or what combination of technologies will be key to drive innovation, especially in the new normal, as they say, going forward in BFSI?
And I wish we all had that, crystal ball, right? But look, I think, as I said before, digital will continue to take the center stage. Not just because it has an edge over the other technologies that you mentioned, but it's just because of the essential nature of it, right? So folks are going to want to have low touch options. They're going to want to maintain social distancing. They still want to be able to do what they always did, even before, right? So compared to what they did before. So digital will continue to move forward. And in my opinion, there are a couple other things which is starting to be a fast followers, right? The second one is, the whole process automation, whether it is, industrial robots or whether it is, robotic automation. It's starting to become very important, and we saw that. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there are certain nation states which, instituted programs about payroll protection programs, right? These are programs literally overnight kind of flooded the system with requests for loans and requests for subsidies. And the systems weren't set up to handle it because there weren't enough people to be able to take phone calls, process applications, get back to customers. We had to resort to bots, right? So we ended up deploying a few bots that actually ended up making the processes go that much more faster in terms of being able to get back to some of the financial institutions that are clients of ours. So I would say process automation would be the second, and analytics. Look, I think Chakra talked about this as well. Analytics is absolutely critical, right? With the amount of data that we all continue to generate on a day-to-day basis, whatever we do on a daily basis, we're generating this data. And to be able to sort of intelligently use that data to not only better our own business, which is our priority number one, the priority number two for us as a firm is to use that data to help our clients be successful in whatever they do, right? So if you force me to sort of kind of rank them, I'd say probably digital at the forefront, with a very close follower of robotic process automation and analytics.
Okay. So we have audience questions also, and my next question is also going to be very similar. So I'll just combine both of those. So we have spoken about how IT is evolving, how digital is evolving across the globe in the BFSI sector. So my next question is around how are we as an Indian ecosystem poised to be a part of this growth story? And the audience question is, what are the three core skill sets that we need in the BFSI GCoE to stay relevant in this current ecosystem?
Yeah, look, I don't know about specifically three skills, but I will tell you that the move towards being an engineering-focused organization is going to be the key as we go forward, right? All of the other ancillary supports, not that it's not important, but it's going to become at some point less and less relevant. When I talk about engineering, core engineering, I'm talking about, whether it is a full stack development, kind of front to end developers that are good at both UI, mid layer, as well as the back end, right? No longer is the paradigm of middleware development versus front end development versus back end development. That's one. Second, if you think about how, if we're going to more and more agile type of, methodologies for our product development and client delivery, it becomes incredibly important for us to start thinking about everybody as a developer and everybody as a tester, everybody as an integrator, everybody as a quote unquote, you name it, right? So I think, in an agile construct, again, it's very important for folks to start playing multiple hats. So rather than be specific about one type of technology or the other, what I would suggest is, I think for us to start to become more versatile in, multiple disciplines of technology as opposed to a single discipline is what's going to differentiate us going forward. So that comes back to the fact that, being focused on core engineering as opposed to specific, technology.
Absolutely. And when we speak about all of these skills and technologies, so talent is obviously at the center of everything. Talent is the enabler to the entire digital transformation journey that you spoke about till now. So how do you think organizations in India, the GCOE, should approach this issue? And so another question I have around this is, what are some of the traps also that we need to avoid while we're trying to scale up very rapidly in this entire journey?
It's a great question. And look, we're figuring this out for ourselves, right? So I would say when you think about talent, rather than sort of say what type of talent, what I would emphasize on, try to figure out a way to secure what you got and make what you got better, right? So we're very focused on learning. The culture of learning is incredibly important. Rather than having to go out and search for specific types of skill sets, we already have a very, very good core of engineers as part of our organization. What we're focused on is being able to sort of enable them to learn multiple other things over and above what they're good at, right? So if you're a great Java developer, we're going to invest in you to make sure that you learn robotic process automation. If you're a great RPA programmer, writing bots, we're going to make sure that we help you sort of understand digital analytics or be able to code in digital technologies to be able to build applications. So I think the most important part is to sort of continue to encourage and invest heavily on a learning culture. To me, I think that will go a long way as opposed to having to focus on talent attraction alongside. That's one. And to the other part of your question, which is very important, is the trap I think we all sort of get into is when you sort of talk about, the leading edge technologies that are going to be the things that are required in the days and months and years to come, you sort of forget. One of my, leadership team members they reminded me yesterday that one of the traps that most organizations get into is sort of then marginalize the core systems that are built possibly in your old technologies, right? So you can't forget what's sort of bringing the bread home, if you will. So COBOL continues to be important. Just because you're going to build all your new systems in digital technologies doesn't mean you can ignore the things that still run very reliably on, mainframes and mobile technologies and things like that. So I think that's the trap you got to be careful about. So you got to think about how do you kind of progress people along the same paths that they have been around for a very long time, as opposed to dramatically asking folks to take a hard left or a hard right for that matter. So that's the part
That's very interesting to know. So gradual shift rather than trying to change things all of it.
That's right.
Yeah. So I have a question more to do with India and probably the biggest buzzword in banking. This is an audience question about blockchain. So the question is around two parts. What will be the role of blockchain in the BFSI sector in India, and around the regulations. So people are not sure about how blockchain regulations will evolve, whether Indian government will allow it, not allow it. So what do you think will be the impact of blockchain and BFSI in the Indian context?
Look, I think blockchain has tremendous amount of potential and continues to be the case, right? When you have a distributed ledger concept, whether you apply that for call it patent protection, for example, or whether you apply it for sort of accepting payments, which you've started to see in a lot of the new age payment processors where the blockchain concept is used as a backend ledger. It's still evolving, so it's still early stages. And from if I were to speak on sort of from the perspective of the business that we are in terms of being able to seamlessly move money around the world, move money and information around the world, we are very, very open to regards to what technology sort of sits behind the rails, if you will. And we're agnostic to that, and we're a big supporter of it, and we continue to watch it closely. So it's still hard to say whether in an Indian context as to what the government will end up deciding. But having said that, the potential of blockchain continues to evolve. So we got to see how this all shapes up.
Yeah. So I have two more questions before we wrap up. So one is around the entire, I mean, continuing with the blockchain part on the local to vocal initiative the government has. So what do you think will be the role that GCOEs will play specifically in that?
In specifically, I'm sorry, I didn't get it. Local to local, you said?
The local to vocal for local initiative that government has announced recently, where more Indian products and more Indian kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, RuPay is a perfect example. So let me take that, right? So I mean, if you think about our payment network that we have created for ourselves, there's still a huge amount of potential with regards to the investment that's been made and the thought leadership that has gone into something like RuPay. I think the full potential of RuPay still has to be fully seen when you compare it to some of the other networks. RuPay again has instant settlement capability and the ability to be able to sort of use that in multiple applications, whether it's person to person or whether it is customer to merchant payment, things like that. I would kind of compare where blockchain can play a role similar to what India has done with its own network like RuPay, right? So think about it from that perspective. There's a huge opportunity for us to sort of innovate and be able to leverage something that's sort of still an open-ended technology and it's still evolving. But it'll be interesting to see how this all shapes up.
Thank you. I think we're almost out of time. I have a last question for you. I mean, it's just two word. I want you to answer it in 2 words only. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest, what is the current level of contribution of Indian GCOEs to the global BFSI digital transformation program on a scale of 1 to 10? And where do you think we will be again on a scale of 1 to 10 in the next 5 years?
2 words or 2 numbers?
2 numbers, yeah.
Okay, all right. Look, I mean, in my mind, there's always scope for improvement, right? So I'd like to think, I think we're somewhere in the higher quadrant, maybe a 6 or a 7, and I'd like to think as a country and as a function, we're closer to 8 or 9 in the coming years. So there's always scope for improvement in both ways.
Absolutely. I think this was a very interesting session. We have a lot of questions from the audience which we couldn't address, but I hope you will be kind enough to answer some of those offline later on, if possible.
Absolutely, it'd be my pleasure, and thank you to you for organizing this event. It's very timely and it's absolutely important concept. So thank you.